Okay guys, this week we are going to be working on graphs, and so scientists use graphs for many different reasons. Each type of graph has kind of its own specific purpose, and so we're going to narrow it down to 4 really common types of graphs used in science. So we'll pause the video in just a second and then you can catch up on the I can statement. Notice we're on page 9, so we're skipping and leaving page 8 blank, and we'll go back to that. And our I can statement is I can distinguish. Remember, we said that means the difference between. I can distinguish between the appearance and purpose of these 4 types of graphs. So we want to know what they look like when we see them and what the purpose of that type of graph is. So when we pause, you need to get your I can statement, and you need to set up the rest of your page into 4 squares. Give yourself plenty of room, so use up the whole rest of your page. And we'll zoom in, and then you can pause to get your I can statement. Okay, so we're going to start, and basically we're just going to be talking today about bar graphs and histograms. So we'll do the other ones on different days. So bar graphs and histograms. So every graph will include a y-axis and an x-axis, and we will talk later about how to remember which one's x and which one is y, but for today I'm just going to point that out to you. And most often the y-axis on graphs will be used for frequency. And frequency means how often something occurs. So maybe how often people answered a certain way, or how often something was observed in an experiment. So frequency will be your y-axis, and we'll just go with in intervals of 10 for our sample bar graph. Okay. And a bar graph is used to compare categories of, and this is an important science word, please pay attention to this word, qualitative data. So categories of qualitative data. We'll get into this word a little bit more. We'll review. It means the qualities or features or characteristics of something. So these are just categories that could describe something. So I'm going to do a bar graph on favorite food. Maybe I should get a different color here. Oops, that guy doesn't want to write. Well, we'll use the same color. Favorite food. And I'm just going to do some little quick categories here. Pizza, Chinese food, tacos, or let's say sushi. So these are categories that describe a type of food, and each category has its own bar, and so each bar tells us how frequently people chose that answer. Okay, so that's just a simple bar graph. Sometimes you'll see the bars are in different colors. They don't have to be, but sometimes it helps make the visual, just looking at it a little bit easier to see that. Just depends on what you're comparing. So if we need to pause so you can catch up, we can do that. All right, and then a histogram. Now these are very similar. Histogram still has a y-axis. We still have frequency on the y-axis. We still have an x-axis, and it still has categories, kind of, but that's where histograms and bar graphs differ. So a histogram is used to compare intervals. An interval basically means like a range of, and here's the other science word, there's only one letter difference. Quantitative, oh, I almost said the wrong thing. Quantitative data. And quantitative, I want you to really focus on that N in quantitative. Qualitative has an L, qualities of something. Quantitative has an N, intervals has an N, range has an N, and all of those N's need to remind you of numbers. Okay? Quantitative data is made up of numbers. So a histogram is going to use ranges of numbers to tell you the frequency of something. So instead of asking people's favorite food, I'm going to say, after you eat your favorite food, what is your weight in pounds? So since it's in pounds, these would be number categories down here, right? So let's say, I'm going to say from 100 to 150, I'll go in 50s, 200, 250, 300. And so each, in a histogram, each interval gets a line, and then you can see that they're not going to be separate categories. These are ranges. So anyone from 100 to 149 would be in this first range, first bar. And then from 150 to 199 would be in that second range. And 200 to 250, 249 I should say, and then 250 to 299. So the difference is histograms, the bars do touch. See how there's no space between them, because this range leads directly to the next range. These intervals touch. There's no gap between the intervals, so there's no gap between the categories. Over here, pizza is completely separate from Chinese food, and that's completely separate from tacos. Each one is its own category, and they're not really related. But number intervals in quantitative data can run right up next to each other. So that's it for today. You guys have a quick video on bar graphs and histograms, and then you have some practice. Have a great one.